Okay. Okay. Zolty Halem Gemara.
Yossi, one more thing. We need to change it. You went from being Akiva Balter to Yossi Simon to Daniel Finkel. Now, I know that's Malin Bakoidish, but we have to try to change the name if we can. We'll do that after this year.
Okay. Show me how to do that.
All right.
Okay. I feel like I'm an imposter, but I only Daniel would object to that. So what would be another example of a case of one of our takanos, one of the takanos that we discussed in the attic that day? Itnan, kol hamataltlin, mavinis hatuma, ma'idei hamardea. Now, the halacha is tumas meis. If you could contract, you can get tumas meis either by touching a mace, or by being under an oihel, under a tent that a mace is under. What does a roof have to have in order to be considered an oil? The halacha is it has to be 1 tefach wide. So 1 tefach is about 5 or 6 inches. Any covering that's at least 6 inches wide, if it's over a mace and over you, or over a mace and over any kalim, it will spread the tumah of the mace to anything that's under this covering. But it has to be a tefach wide. Now, there's another rule. Anything that is hovering over the airspace of a mace, no matter how big it is, it itself becomes tumah. So anything that's over the airspace of a mace becomes tumah no matter what. But if it happens to be a tefach wide, then it'll also spread tumah to anything that's found anywhere underneath that covering. So a mardaya is a goad. It was something used by a shepherd to push animals around. It was like a rod. I believe it was even made out of metal. So the Brisa says that kol metalton mevinis hatuma ba'iva mardaya. Any metalton, any moving object that's round, it's rod shaped, and it's as thick as a goad, it would act as an oihel. Now, a goad is not a tefach in diameter. However, its circumference is a tefach. So if I took a string and I wrapped it around this rod, and then I opened that string up, that string would in fact be a tefach wide. But that doesn't make the rod a tefach wide. The rod is only a third of a tefach, because anything who has a circumference of a tefach will have a diameter of about a third of a tefach, just like the rule of a circle. The circumference.
That's pi, right? So a cube.
Correct.
So where's Mr. Munn when you need him?
That's right. So it says it's non kol metalton mavin is hatuma ba'oivei hamardea. All metalton will act as an oihel if it's merely the thickness of a mardea, meaning it has the circumference of a tefach. Now that's not a deraisa. Deraisa, of course, it has to be a tefach wide, and it's not. Rav Tarfon vehemently objected to this takana. He said it's absolutely not true, and he used a very radical way to express his disagreement with this takana.
Sorry, Yossi. I don't know, Akiva, there seems to be an echo, so I'm not sure what that is. But
Try again.
Am I the only one that's hearing it? Or
no, if everybody could mute their phones if they're not talking, that'll prevent the echo.
Okay.
Akiva didn't mute his phone, and Würzburger didn't.
No, but I think Akiva's logged in twice.
I am. 1 second.
And Mechi didn't mute his phone. Oh, he did. I'm going to mute mine now.
Okay, are we good? Yeah, we're good now. Now I'm talking to the wall again. Okay. From time to time, you could unmute you just to let me know that someone's still there. Okay, Zok to Gemara Vayter. So what did Rav Tarfon say to express his strong opposition to this claim of a takana? He said, Akapayach espeni. And Rashi says, Mitzar hoya al Torah hamishtakeches. He was so troubled by Torah that's getting forgotten, when people are making up these gzeres that are nish gestoigen, nish gefloigen, umakal asatzma, he actually cursed himself with it. And he said, Akapayach means akabre, loshen chitach v'kitzer. I'll cut down my children. Shazu halacha mikupachas, because this is a cut down halacha. So people ask, like, what did his children do wrong? So people want to massage the Gemara and say, Rav Tarfon is just saying, I'm so sure that this is not true, I'll swear on the life of my children. But it's still very difficult to understand why Rav Tarfon was taking out his frustration with people forgetting Torah on his children. And he says, Sheshama Hashemei V'tah. There's really no such gzeira to make a rod that's not even a tefach wide into an oil hameis. And whoever heard this halacha made a mistake, heard something else, and misunderstood it as meaning that what the takana was. But let me tell you what really happened. But Iker Oiver, there was a farmer that was walking by, Umardoy al Ksefim, and he had this long rod resting on his shoulder. So it's sticking out in front of him, it's sticking out behind him. The ihel tzidei achas ala kever, and one end of that rod was hovering in the airspace over a kever. So what did they do? Timu oisai mishum kelim hamahilam alames. What happened is this rod becomes tummy, because even though this rod is not an oil, it still was hovering over the airspace of a mace, which now makes it tummy. It becomes an avatuma, right? Once it becomes an avatuma, and the farmer is touching it, the farmer becomes a rishonatuma. And that's really all that happened. But someone made a mistake and thought that the person himself also became an avatuma, as if he was walking into an oil mace. And that's never what happened. That's not what anybody said. So this whole idea that the person becomes tummy because he was in the oil mace is a misconception. He never became tummy. He only became tummy because he touched the stick, and the stick was over a mace. So let's see Rashi inside. Sheshama Shemea, Kishenashala Shaila, Al Yedei Maisa, the Beis Medrash. When the Shaila was asked about something that happened occurred, the Shaila was asked in the Beis Medrash, V'shama Shetamu'uhu, and somebody heard, some Amoritz heard, that the farmer carrying the stick is tummy. V'tah, he didn't understand what the psak was. He didn't understand the reasoning for why this farmer became tummy. The Rabbanan said that the stick itself, the rod itself, was tummy because it was hovering over the airspace of a mace, which makes it an avatuma. Shahakli atzmai hamahil, a keli that is hovering over a mace, tummy b'cholshu. It doesn't matter if it's a tefach wide or if it's a millimeter wide. Anything that hovers over a mace becomes tummy. The leiba inan pesach tefach. You don't need a keli to be tefach wide. Ela l'shavya oil. That's only to make the keli into an oil. Lahavi tuma tachas roshei asheni, to spread the same tumas mace under the entire stick. Lahavi tuma lacherim, to bring the same tumas mace to anything else underneath that stick. Aval gabedi day, but the stick itself, it's tummy even if it's a millimeter wide. And the tam'ul ikar, the only reason why the farmer became tummy is not because he was under an oil. It was only tumas erev. He didn't become tummy for 7 days like someone who was in the oil mace. He became tummy like someone who touched an avatuma. He becomes tummy just for 1 day, and he doesn't need the zrika of the paraduma. He just goes to the mikveh. Mishum shenaga ba'oisek kli shu avatuma. The rod became an avatuma. It was in the airspace of the mace. The farmer touched that rod, so the farmer becomes a rishon latuma. So all he has to do is goes to the mikveh, and tonight he's tahar again. But But Vashemea Ta, the person who heard over this psak, misunderstood it. Loimar Shashaula Iker Avatuma. He thought that they made the farmer into an avatum as if he was standing in the oil of maize. The Tamazain Lutner Azoya. But it was dead wrong. It's just simply not true. That's not what happened. So Reb Tarfon was fuming that someone made up this whole Torah that someone's going to be tummy as if he's in the oil of maize, where it's not true. So he was very frustrated by people messing up the Torah. Amar Rabbi Akiva, so Rabbi Akiva said, don't feel so bad. As always, Akiva is always trying to make things better. And he said, I'll fix it up. Let me explain what's going on over here. Let me show you a different perspective that'll make it a little bit more understandable as to what happened. I'm going to explain it to you where you'll understand where in fact there would be a legitimate gzeira. All metalton can bring tumah upon a person who carries them if it's the thickness of a mardea. So, of course, a keli will bring tumah to itself if it's over a mace, even if it's a millimeter wide. But if it's a oive mardea wide, there's actually a legitimate reason to say that it's going to bring a proper tumah mace onto the person who's carrying this rod. Ve'al adam v'chelim, and then anybody else that's under this rod, it would be b'pasech tefach. So what Rabbi Akiva is doing is he's making a new category. There's anybody who's underneath this rod. Anyone underneath this rod, Rabbi Tarfon, I agree with you, would not be tamei else oil and mace. The rod is not a tefach wide. The rod itself, we also both agree, it becomes tamei because it was hovering over the mace. The new category that even Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Akiva is explaining that even Rabbi Tarfon should agree, is the person who's carrying this rod. The person who's carrying this rod becomes tamei because he touched the rod. So Rashi explains beautifully why we should say that he becomes tamei like he's in the oil hameis. So Zok Rashi, ani asakin shedivrei chachamim, she'oimrim oive hamardea mevi tumah. The chachamim made this takana that if this rod is at least a tefach, if this rod is a tefach in circumference, it will bring too much oil to the person holding it. Kayab, and I'll explain a logical reason why that should be the case. It's because yesh davar shemavin alav tuma mamish litain hazoya midivrein. I'm going to explain to you why there's reasoning to say that even though this rod is only a tefach in circumference, it would still cause its carrier, the person carrying it, to be tamei as if there's a tumas oil, but it would be midrabanan, it would be gzeira. Kigoyin, what's the case? Ala adam hanoisa, the person who's actually carrying this rod, shetamei boy tumas maga minatorah. This person, he becomes tamei for the day. That we already established because he's touching the rod, and the rod became tamei because it was hovering over the mace. So the rod became an avatoma. The person carrying it, who's also touching it, becomes a rishon latoma, and midaraisa he's tamei, and he has to toivel in the mikveh, and he's tamei for the day. But Gazur Alav, they increased the Toma Midrabanon. If the stick was Ba'over Mardea, they were gosh on him Latame Tumas oil midavreim. They said, we're going to treat you like you're Tame Tumas oil, and you actually are Tame for 7 days, and you require Hazoya, only Midrabanon. Why would they make such a Gzera? Gzera Hekefai Mishum Aviyah. Because they're afraid that an Amoritz, not understanding this, would think that this rod is actually big enough to be an oil. Now, this rod is not big enough to be an oil. It's not a tefach wide, but someone who's not knowledgeable might think it's big enough to be an oil. And therefore, kivan de metamas lay, since we're saying he's tamei midiraisa anyway, because he touched the stick, al korchach tuma diraisa lastruchi harav shemesh. The real tuma diraisa that he has for touching this rod is a tuma of a rishon, which would mandate that he toivels, and then he's tamei just till the evening. But the fact is, the observer, the Amoritz watching this, but doesn't understand why is the person who's carrying the stick tamei if he never touched the mace directly. Now we know the reason is because he touched the stick, but the Amoritz will think is kasavar shemishum oil atomatama. The Amoritz will think that the reason why this person is tamei for the day is because he was underneath the stick, which was an oil hamaze.
Sorry, Yossi, if he's such an amanoris, what would he know about an oil for?
I guess, see, the most dangerous people are people who know a little bit. That's why the internet's so dangerous.
Or they think they know.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So what happens is, Kesover Shemishum oil atamatami, umishum sheyesh behekefoi tefach, and since its circumference is a tefach, this amoris will think, hey, this must be an oil maze. And since we're not being mitamim midaraisa for a week, he's only tummy for the day because really he only just touched the stick that was tummy. Also, remember these amaratim are going to start saying, "But oil gomer nami tumas erev." They'll think, "Hey, this was an oil." In their minds, this wasn't oil, and the person is still only tummy for one day. So they'll say, "Oh, I guess there's no such thing as tumas oil." And even every tumas oil, you're only tummy for one day, and you're only a rishon l'tumah, and you don't need hazoyah. Anybody who didn't touch the stick, and that person is not tummy at all. If you're just underneath the stick, you're not tummy. You're completely tar. There, of course, no one will become tummy from an oil unless the rod is actually a tefach wide. But if someone touched it, being that we're mitamehim, as if he touched a tuma and he becomes a rishon, the Amoritz will misunderstand that as if it was an oil, and the Amoritz will think that oil does not make you tummy for 7 days. And because of that, the Chazal said that when someone becomes tummy because he's touching this rod, will midrabanan make him tummy for 7 days and mandate hazoyah to avoid confusion. Rabbi Kiva Mosai the Rabbanan Parsh, and that's how Rabbi Kiva explained the reasoning for the gzeira of the Rabbanan. So that's how he explained it. So I'll call upon him. You have here a gzeira that, according to Rabbi Kiva, it's a logical gzeira, but Rabbi Tarfon holds it's not a good gzeira. So we're soon going to see, as we're tallying up the gzeiras, we're going to be missing one according to Rabbi Tarfon, because Rabbi Tarfon will not count this as one on the list, but Rabbi Kiva will. So let's go on. This rod, this goading rod that we're talking about, it's not a tefach thick, so its diameter is not a tefach, but its circumference is a tefach. The gozer ala kefai mishum avya, and they were gozer on a rod that has a circumference of a tefach, because it will be confused, as Rabbi Kiva said, it can get confused with a rod that would actually be a full tefach in diameter. According to Reb Tarfon, who just objects and says there's no such takana here, Batralahu will be missing one of our count of 18. If you remember yesterday, the person who disagreed with the one of the takanas being that mayim she'uvim with the bucket underneath the pipe, Rabbi Yoshi said that it was not Nimnu V'Gamru. Rabbi Yoshi said yesterday that Adai Nachleikis B'Shamai and B'Sil B'Makom Emedis, and therefore it cannot be one of the resolutions that was made there. So the Gemara asked, according to Rabbi Yoshi, he'll be missing now one of the takanas. He'll be missing one of the 18 items. So the Gemara said that Rabbi Yoshi will have to rely on this new case of B'Nois Kusum Nidos Merari Sason, and that's the takana that they made, that all young boyish girls, all from birth, have a din of a nida, and we have to treat them as if they're tummy. So any tires that they touch is considered to be tummy. So that yesterday we used that to make up for the one that Rabbi Yoshi disagreed with. Here we're using the same one to make up for the one that Rabbi Tarfon is using. Now the problem is you can't burn the candle on both ends. So if Rabbi Tarfon is using the gzeira of B'Nois Kusim to replace the gzeira of this mardas, then on Amud Beis he can't hold like Rabbi Yoshi, because he'll need the gzeira of the Mayim She'uvim, so he'll have to hold like Rabbi Meir, that in fact the party of Beis Shammai overwhelmed the party of Beis Hillel, and poskin that it was Mayim She'uvim, so that at least he has his count that he's going to need of 18. Like Rabbi Meir, on yesterday's Gemara, I'll have to hold like Rabbi Meir, he can't hold like Rabbi Yoshi, because the Nidus Nois kusum is no longer available because he's needing it to replace this halacha. We're soon going to see that everybody agrees.
Yossi,
Yes.
I thought this whole thing was about Bishamai and this hill. How does this Rikiva B'Tarfon? How does this play in?
The 18 takonos from that day were not all related to Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. There were 18 takonos made that day. Of them, some of them were Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, but not all of them.
Oh, okay.
So when we do the final tally, most of them have nothing to do with Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel.
Okay.
Although there were some of them. So we're going to soon see at the end that everybody, no matter how you count the amount of 18 takanos, everyone's going to need benois kusim, nidus merisasan as one in the count. But being that we have different machlokes, and like Reb Tarfon is disqualifying this example, and Reb Yoshi disqualified the example yesterday with Maim Shuvim, the Gemara is going to go through each shita what they counted as the 18 takanos. So to more about the idach. There's another shaila that they discussed, boicher lagas. Now we already had this sugya boicher lagas, and we had the sugya boicher lagas because the Gemara earlier told us, Rabbi Huna said, that there's only 3 places where Shammai and Hillel themselves argue. Not Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they argue many times, but Rabbi Huna said a couple of lot ago that there's only 3 places where Shammai and Hillel themselves argue. So the Gemara asked, boicher lagas was another example of machlokes between Shammai and Hillel, so that should bring the total number to 4. And if you remember, what the Gemara said there was that doesn't count as a case of a machlokes Shammai and Hillel, because right out of the gate, Shammai shlugged up Hillel, and it doesn't even qualify as a machlokes because Hillel gave in right away. So now we're elaborating, even though that's not an example of a machlokes Shammai and Hillel, it's still an example of one of the 18 takanos that was made that day. So we're sort of chazering over the sugya of boicher lagas. The idach haboicher lagas. Boicher lagas, again, is someone who is harvesting grapes, and the reason why he's harvesting these grapes is to take them to the press to squeeze them to make grape juice or wine out of. And the question is, the moisture, the juice that comes out of these grapes in the basket as you're transporting it is just falling to the floor. So it doesn't really have a chashivas. But the shaila is, since there might be some chashivas to it, and what we learned a couple of days ago was, since if I would put it into a pail that would capture that juice, it would have a chashivas, and because of that, Shammai held that mashke will be machshir the grapes to be mekabel tumah. And the nafkamina laloch is a very big nafkamina. Do you have to be careful to keep the grapes completely tar the whole time? You have to make sure that the grapes don't touch any kalim or any people that are tamei throughout the entire process, which makes the whole pressing process more complicated if you have to be careful that it shouldn't get tamei. So the case was a boicher lagas. Shammai omer huchsher. The grapes are huchsher l'kabel tumah, and therefore you have to be very careful not to let any tumah come into contact with the entire grape mush during the pressing process. Hillel omer lo huchsher. It's not huchsher. The juice that comes out in the basket doesn't count for anything. It's not considered mashke and choshev, and it will not be machshir the grapes l'kabel tumah, and therefore you don't have to be watching that everything should be tar. Amar Hillel Shammai. Hillel told Shammai, and Hillel was attacking Shammai with many arguments that prove that there should not be a reason to watch these grapes b'tahira, and that this grape juice that came out of the grapes should not be choshev to be machshir the grapes l'kabel tumah. And he asked, why is it that you're makbid, Shammai, only by wine? And only by wine do you say the juice that comes out of it is machshir, and because of that you have to do it b'tahira. They must be b'tahira, but with olives, under exact same circumstances, you're not worried about the juice that comes out of those olives. And according to you, Shammai, that are so worried about this juice that comes out of fruit, it should be across the board. Now Shammai, Tosfos tells us, learned that the chiluk is very simple. The juice that comes out of grapes is actually grape juice. That's a choshev mashke. But the juice that comes out of olives before you crush them, just because they're sitting in a basket, that's not oil. That's just some type of juice that's nothing. And therefore, it wouldn't have the chashivas to be mashur the olives to kabel tumah. So Shammai said, I don't need to extend the gzera to olives because the gzera shouldn't be relevant by olives. And it's pretty clear that there's a distinction between grapes and olives. But Hillel kept on attacking and saying, no, if you're going to answer grapes, you should answer olives as well. Because if you're saying that it could be hukshir, it should be hukshir as well. So Shammai says, don't chepper me. If you're going to chepper me and pester me about olives, I'm going to, if it's clear to me that you can't get the understanding of the distinction between olives and grapes, and in the warrants gzera there as well, I'm happy to make the same chumrah by olives that you have to do with tahira. So don't push me, because if you push me, I'm going to extend my gzera there as well. So Shammai wanted to enforce his psak. He wanted to literally bulldoze the psak to go his way. So no'atzu cherev v'beis hamedrash. And Rashi tells us they would do that every time they were going to be taking account to come up with a psak halacha. They put a sword in the beis medrash. Amru nichnas yichnas. You can come in if you want, but vayoytzal yetze. We're not letting anybody out of the beis medrash until we resolve this issue once and for all. But that day, Hillel kafaf v'yoshev l'fnei Shammai. Hillel was getting beat up by Shammai and company because Shammai was pressuring very hard everybody to paskin against Hillel. So Hillel was sitting there, fetched in front of Shammai like one of the Talmidim. It was such a sad day for Klal Yisrael to see the Nasi, Hillel, being ganged up upon and pressured and beaten up, figuratively beaten up, and to reject his psak, like the day that the egel was made. And the Rishonim are masber, what's the significance of the egel? But the egel, Aaron and Hur, they didn't want to make the egel, but they were pressured by the crowds, and they didn't have the backbone. They were Arnovim, they were soft people, and they didn't have the backbone to stand up to Klal Yisrael and to say no. They allowed the pressure to get to them, and that's why they made the egel. And that's what happened to Hillel. Being that Hillel was not a strong person, he wasn't assertive, he let them walk all over him, and on that day, the psak came out against Hillel, the Gozer Shammai, the Hillel, the Kiblim now. And they tried making a gzera that day from Shammai and Hillel that the grapes have to be watched and they're hukshul kabatuma, but the people wouldn't accept the gzera. It was too difficult. But also Talmidayu, but then the Talmidim joined in and Gozru v'kiblim nayu. When they accepted it and they made the gzera, then it was accepted by the Moinam. And it seems like all this was done in that day. Rashi says, the Gozer Shammai v'Hillel v'lo kiblu minayu, v'asu talmidim the Gozer v'kiblu minayu. And it seems like all this occurred in that day, and there was a Kabbalah made. They accepted the resolution that these grapes have to be harvested in the Torah state, and the pressing, everything has to be in the Torah state. My time.
Sorry, I want to understand something. So Shammai is beating up on Hillel. Everything is done on one day. What was it, live streamed, so all the Yidden knew what was going on? This was in the beis medrash. It was 50 people or 100 people. How did everybody know what was going on inside?
I guess it was a big day. What's up? It was a big day. It must have been a big day. It was a day where people went to visit. This whole thing was this I think it was Hananiah, his name was, who locked himself up into the attic to explain Sefer Yecheskel. And there was a very big delegation of rabbis who went to visit him. So there was probably a planned big summit. It probably had a lot of fanfare. And there were probably celebrities that jet set there from all over the world for this big junket, for this big event. It was like Gedola.
You think they had box seats? Okay, sorry, I couldn't resist that. All right. So I've been Kashal Yisrael, so that means all the people outside were waiting to hear what the results were.
I guess it must have been a big mime. It must have been a big mime.
Must have been mime.
I mean, just think of the concessions.
Yeah, believe me. I'm thinking of the broadcasting rights.
Okay, Zolty Gemara. My time. So, what is the reasoning for it? Amar Zeiri, Amar Abchanina, Gzeira. So, we learned already a couple of days ago that the Gzeira was that you might transport the grapes not in a basket that leaks, but in a basket that's smeared with a waterproof solution. So, it's like a bucket. And when you're retaining the juice in the bucket, there for sure it has a chashivas, and it will be machshir the grapes l'kabel tuma. But that wasn't the only shot that the Gemara had, and there was a whole bunch of different svaros being thrown around that day. So we're going to discuss some svaros that are in addition to the svar that we learned a couple of days ago. So Reb Ziri Amar B'chanin Gzeira Shema Yivtzereno B'Kupos Tmeos. The Gzeira is that you might use baskets that are tamei. Now, what's the big deal if the baskets are tamei? If the mashke, if the wine that comes out of these grapes don't have a chashivas and they're not machshir the grapes to be makabel tuma, who cares if the baskets are themselves tamei? But this is a very shver svar. I don't understand it. But what the Gemara is saying is the mere fact that the basket is tamei, that creates a chashivas to the mashke, and it becomes tamei b'vasachas as it's being machshir as roim. And Rashi says, b'kupos tmeos, the osi tumas hakli, the fact that the basket in which you're transporting the grapes is tamei, umachsheve lemashke lahachshir, the fact that the keli is tamei makes the mashke choshev to be machshir the grapes to be b'kabel tuma, and it becomes tamei and huchshir b'vasachas. So I don't understand the logic. Just because the basket's tummy, that's machshav the mashke to make it buchsher. I don't understand it, but I'm repeating the words. This is what the Gemara is saying. So I'm going to accept it that since the basket's tummy, that creates a chashivas and that creates a hechsher to the grapes to become tummy. Zok to the Gemara. If you actually hold like that this magical svara, that since the basket's tomei, it will make the juice that comes out of the grape choshev to be machshir the grapes to mikabel toma. If you hold it at svara, yeah, then it makes perfect sense. If you hold that this theory does not work, what could be the reason why Beis Shammai is answering these grapes? Why is he saying that these grapes will be huksher the kabel tuma? Alamar Zeiri, maybe we can have another svara as to why the grapes are huksher the kabel tuma. Amar Chanina, Gzeira Shema Yivtzerenu Bekupos Mezufafos, and that's the svara that we're familiar with from yesterday, from 2 days ago, and that is we're afraid you'll use the basket, you'll use a bucket, not a basket, and then you're definitely being machshiv the mashke because you're actually capturing it and using it, and that's very logical why it should be huksher l'kabel tuma. Now it's important.
Sorry, yes, it's just so according to Beis Hill, it doesn't matter if the basket's tummy or not, right?
Correct.
According
to Hill, it doesn't matter because Hill actually held that it's tar, although Hill gave in at the end, so at the end it does matter. But before he agreed, it didn't matter. Now, it's very important to note, when we discussed this sugya yesterday of a boitzer lagas, I specifically said it's a boitzer lagas. The reason why I'm harvesting these grapes is because I want to use them to get juice out of them. And that's why the juice has a chashivas to be machshir the grapes l'kabel tuma. But if I was harvesting these grapes because I wanted to eat the grapes themselves, and I didn't want to get juice out of them, then no matter what juice comes out of them, will not be machshir the grapes l'kabel tuma, because I don't want the juice to leave the grapes. I actually want the grapes to remain whole because I want fresh grapes to eat. So I don't want any type of juice coming out of these grapes. So that svara works very good if it's the kupais mezufafos, because if the only time we'll say that it's machshir, the juice is machshir the grapes l'kabel tuma, is if I wanted that juice, meaning my intention was to squeeze the juice out of these grapes. But if it was grapes that I was planning to eat, even if it was bekupos mizufafos, it still wouldn't be machshurit because I don't want any juice coming out of these grapes. I want the grapes to remain whole. However, if you're going with the svara, this magical svara, that the basket that's tummy automatically is machshurit, which is not based on a svara, it's just like a magic, well then even if I am harvesting these grapes to eat and I don't even plan to get juice out of them, that fact that it's tummy will still do its magic and be machshurit grapes to be mekabel tumah. So this just shaila of boitz lagas, whether or not it applies to grapes that I'm planning to eat, will depend on which svara we use to describe why it's huchsher. Rav Amar, another svara, the reason why we say that these grapes are huchsher l'kabel tumah is because of noishchos. Rashi says that when clusters are growing on the tree, on the vine, sometimes they get intertwined and twisted together. So you're forced to pull them apart. When you harvest them, you're pulling them apart. And Rashi says, we can see Rashi had noishchos, when you pull them apart, Zot Rashi, when you're coming to pull them apart, you're going to end up squeezing some juice out of those grapes because you're manhandling them to separate them. Anything that's done by hand, even if you didn't want juice to come out of it, but since you're doing it by hand, and it's impossible when you're manhandling these grapes that you're not going to give out some juice, machshir, that also creates a cheshivas, and it will be machshir the grapes to be mekabel tumah. Again, based on this svara, it doesn't make a difference why I'm handling these grapes, because the fact that I have to separate them because they're twisted together, which I'm going to do whether or not I'm harvesting them to eat or whether I'm harvesting them to get wine out of, once I manhandle it, anything that comes out of these grapes will now be machshir the grapes to be mekabel tumah. So that was a third reason. And Rav Nachman Amar Rav Baravua says, you have somebody who actually only plans to use his grapes for wine, but he doesn't know yet if his grapes are ready to be harvested and if they're juicy yet, if they have enough juice in them so that I can harvest them to take them to the press. So what does he do? He takes one cluster of grapes while they're still connected to the tree. And while something's connected to the tree, it for sure is not mekabel tumah. And you go to a grape that's hanging on the tree and you squeeze a little bit. You give a kvetch to one of the clusters. So what's going to happen is some of the juice of that cluster is going to drip on the grapes around it. And then you'll know if you have grapes that are juicy enough to harvest. Now, what happens? When I end up actually cutting the grapes off the tree, so when I cut the grapes off the tree and now they're not mechuber anymore, so now they could be mekabel tumah, there could still be some of that juice that I myself extracted on those grapes. And at that point, that juice will be machshir the grapes mekabel tumah, and that's why Shammai held that the grapes that you're harvesting and you're putting them into a basket, juice that's on them will be machshir them mekabel tumah, and any work that you do in the wine press has to be done b'tahira. That's the end of this sugya. The idach. So now we have another example. So I think we're already at number 13. The idach, the other takana that was made today, Omar Tevi Rishba. Tevi Rishba was a gentleman who was a trapper. He was a hunter and he trapped animals. Rashi says that he was poirish nashvin lotzot chayev. He would spread nets to capture chayis and oifis. Now, what did he say? He said, "Amatavrish Amar Shmuel, af gidule truma baibi and gozru." They also made a gzera that if you take truma, so you take some wheat kernels of truma and you plant those in the ground, and they disintegrate, and now they grow up a new crop. That also, midaraisa, that's not truma anymore. That's chula, because it's a whole new crop that grew. The seed disintegrates in the ground, and a new crop grows up. But there's a gzer d'Rabbanan that even that new crop that grows also remains truma. And that was a gzeira d'Rabbanan. Why would they make such a gzeira? My time, Amar Abchanina, gzeira mishum truma tahira b'yad Yisrael. The reason why they did it is because they're afraid a Yisrael will be too cheap to give his truma to the kohen. So what will he do? He'll keep the truma. He's not going to eat it. He'll plant it, and then whatever grows out of it is chulud, and that he'll get to keep. And basically, he hoodwinked the kohen out of his truma. So in order to stop a Yisrael from doing that, they said, even if you plant it, the new stuff that you grow also has a din truma, and therefore you won't be able to eat it, so your plan to rip off the kohen will not work. Amar Rava said it's not logical to say that they would make such a gzeira. Because either chashidi lahachi, if Yisraelim are choshed to be crooks at the, well, not really a galant, but to be lowlifes, and to rip off the kohen from his fair share of the truma, well, he wouldn't have to take the truma and plant it. There's a much easier way, much easier method that a Yisrael can use to cheat the kohen out of his truma. Afrushi nami lo lifreshi. He doesn't even have to be mavish truma. Omer Rava Yisrael even the efshir lemevet chita achas kedishmuel v'loy ka'avid himunim hemne. Technically, midaraisa, you don't have to separate the 1/40th or 1/50th or 1/60th for truma. If you take only one kernel and you separate it as truma, that will make your tevua no longer tevel. So you can technically get away when you're being mafish truma with one kernel. So if this Yisrael wanted to be a lowlife and cheat the kohen out of his truma, he doesn't have to be mafish a full crop of truma and then plant it to get out of it. If he really wanted to get out of it, he would have just only been mafish one kernel. So we don't need to make that gzeira to prevent the Yisraelim from ripping off the kohanim, because they have plenty of other ways to rip off the kohanim. It would have no impact. Elamai, if a Yisrael is already going to take truma off properly, you can assume he plans to give it to the kohen. So why did they make this rule that if you plant truma, it retains its status of truma? We're afraid that if a kohen has truma that's tamei, now even if truma is tamei, you still give it to the kohen. And what the kohen can do with it is he could use it as fuel. But let's say the kohen doesn't want to use it as fuel. He wants to make food out of it. So he retains it. He'll save the seeds that are tamei. He'll save it until planting season. He'll plant those seeds, and then he'll have a whole new crop out of it. And that would be a great idea for the kohen to salvage and to make more value out of his tamei truma that he received. But why don't we want him to do that? Because Dilma Mashile Gabe, he's going to end up storing truma that's tamei by him, and that's a very dangerous thing to have there, because someone might by mistake eat it, not realizing that it's tamei. So we want him to get rid of it right away. So because of that, we tell him, even if you replant it, it will still retain its status of truma tameya. So now it's not just gidula truma is truma. We're saying gidula truma, if you plant truma and it's tamei, the new truma that will grow, the new tvu that will grow will also be truma, and it'll be tamei truma. And we do that to discourage the kohanim from saving and storing truma that's tamei, because it's dangerous to keep it into their possession. Let's look at another gzeira that was made. Imagine you're coming home and you didn't estimate properly how long it's going to take to get home for Shabbos, and it's starting to get dark. You're carrying your wallet on you, and Shabbos is coming. Now you don't want to just leave your wallet on the street. There's a lot of money involved, and if we would tell you to abandon your wallet, we're afraid you won't. So there's two things you could do. Either you could carry it less than 4 amos at a time, and then you won't have the isser of being mavir something dalat amos b'shus rabim. Or the other option is giving it to a goy to carry for you, which is amir la'akim, and of course it's derabbanan. But the gzeira was, don't carry it by yourself little by little. Better give it to the goy. That's a gzeira that they made. Nois and kisei l'nachri by being gazru. The gzeira that they made was to give your wallet to a goy to carry home for you, rather than carry it yourself, but do it in small increments so that you never travel 4 amos in one shot. That was an easy one. The idach, and then there's another takana we could talk about. Amar Bali, Amar Avimai, San Visa.
Sorry, Yossi, when he gives it to the goy, if it's already Shabbos, I don't want to go back to that sugya.
It's Ben Hashmoshes. It's Ben Hashmoshes.
Oh, it's Ben Hashmoshes. It's not Shabbos yet.
Yeah. He gives it to the
Okay.
Rabbi Shmoshes because Shabbos is coming and he knows he's not gonna make it back on time.
Because normally if he's giving it, then he's doing, he's carrying also on Shabbos. When if he hands it over his wallet on Shabbos, forget the mutzah. And the guy receives it from.
We're talking about
carrying.
That's why we're saying don't carry it less than Dalet Amos, which is a rabbi at a time. So go 3 Amos, then stop. Go 3 Amos and stop. Don't do that. We're afraid you might walk further than 4 Amos. Better just give it to a guy.
Okay.
Avigdor, you remember when we were coming? I'm sorry?
The last time I gave my money to a guy to hold, I never saw it again.
Yes, I was just thinking about our trip back from Oklahoma.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. We had to walk back from Yorkdale, and we had the guy, the limousine driver, bring our luggage home.
I remember we got back to your house before he did because he got stuck at the light on Rainy. And we thought, he's made off with all of our stuff.
And we just walked through the parking lot, yeah. And
that was the last time. That day I made a gezerah not to travel Erev Shabbos unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah, that was not fun. DYLive, Amar Bali, Amar Avi, my son Vasal. Piton, the Shamnon, the Yenon, Uvnoiseyim. The bread of a goy, the oil of a goy, the wine of a goy, and the daughters of a goy, Kulon the Yudches Davarhen. They're all as a unit, one of the examples of the Gzeres, of the 18 Gzeres. So the Gemara is going to get into the details of that. Hanicha l'Rav Meir. It makes sense. So that's another Gzer. So Hanicha l'Rav Meir. According to Rav Meir, which is the Rav Meir who counts as one of the Gzeres, the case of the bucket underneath the pipe, we have 18. El Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, Shifter Yavin, we only have 17. So now we're up to the count. So let's look at Rashi. Rashi actually gives us the count. Hanichal Rav Meir, the moni lahu, laha, the maniach kelen tachas atzinar. Rav Meir counts the case of when there's a bucket that you put under the pipe that's filling the mikvah. He counted the fact that it's shmaim shu'uvim as one of the 18 gzeres. Havalu yudches. With all those, if you tally it up, there's going to be 18. And here Rashi counted. Tes, the pasli truma. The 9 cases of the tumas that pasal truma, those were the original 9 cases that we had. Then we had the 2 cases from the Mishnah earlier, the ein karin ve'ein poilin, that you cannot read or take lice out of a beged to a candlelight on Shabbos. So that's 11. Hachatzer, we had 11. Pashul zayin. So the difference between 11 and 18 is 7. So we need 7 more. So what are the 7? Sinar, the case of the pipe, which is the case with the pipe where you put the bucket under the pipe. That machlok is a mayor and a byoshi if it's a one of the gzeres. Mardea, which we learned today, which is the goad that it makes the fellow tamei, and that of course is only according to Rabbi Akiva, not according to Rav Tarfon. Ubenois kusim, which we said everybody has to come on to. Uboitzer lagas, which we just did. Gidula truma, which we just did. And noisin kisai to the goy, which we just did. Upitan ushmanan chada, the pas of a goy, and the oil of a goy is 1 gzer. So we have 7, right? Tzinar, mardeya, nois kusim, boitzer, gidula truma, noisin kisai, and pitan shamnan. You have 17, so 11 plus 7 is going to be 18. Elul Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, who didn't count on the list, the case of when you're putting the bucket underneath the pipe, Shavsri Havin, he only has 17. And by the same token, we can ask Rav Tarfon, who disagreed with the Mardea case, also is stuck with only 17. So what are they going to use to supplement the list so that there should be 18? So Ika Hadr of Acha bar Ada. There was an additional gzera that Rav Acha bar Ada had. The Amar of Acha bar Ada, Amar of Yitzchok, Gozur al Piton Mishum Shamnon. The reason why they said you're not allowed to eat bread of a goy is because you're not allowed to eat the oil of a goy. And we're going to see soon what that means. Val Shimnon, and we didn't let people drink the oil of a goy, Mishum Yenon, because we don't want people to drink the wine of a goy. So the Gemara analyzes. Al Piton Mishum Shamnon. We said that you can't eat their bread because of their oil. Well, my ulma the shemen mipas. Why is it any worse to eat the bread of the goy than it is to eat the oil of a goy? Ella, let's change the pshat. Gazru al piton v'shamnon mishum yena. Bread and oil are on the same level. And the reason why we said you shouldn't eat those of a goy is because we don't want you drinking the wine of a goy. Now, wine, we understand why you don't want to drink the wine of a goy, because that creates a social fabric, and that'll bring you together with goyim. We don't want you socializing with them over wine, because it's going to come to have you have relationships with their women. And we don't want you to have a relationship with the women, because if you have a relationship with their women, they're going to bring you to do avodah zarah. So that was the first gzeira that everybody counts. But there's another gzeira here. Al davar acher, they were gozer on some other thing, some mystery thing, mishum davar acher, because of some other mystery thing. Correcting more, what is this extra mystery thing that they were gozer upon? My davar acher, Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak, gozer al tinik nachri, they were gozer on every goyish child, shematama beziva. Every goyish child has the halacha of a zav. So even though they're children, and children never have any type of emissions, A, and B, a goy, even if a goy does have emissions, there's no tumah zav for a goy. Nevertheless, they made every goyish child the status of a zav, which means Jews will stay away from them because they don't want to become tameh. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to separate the Jewish children from the goyish children. If our little boys are going to hang out with their little boys, it's not going to be very good.
Sorry, Yossi.
Yes.
Did Rav Yossi already use Benois Kusi?
Rav Yossi did.
He did. Okay.
That's why he needs to have an extra.
I thought it was Rav Meir. Okay, fine.
No, the Gemara right there by Rav Yossi says, according to Rav Yossi, who doesn't have that case, he has Benois Kusi.
Okay, sorry.
So, Ihachi, Rav Meir, Nami Tishri Hadid, according to Rav Meir, who does count the case of the bucket underneath the pipe, with this extra gzera, he now has 19. Zaktimar, you're right. What he'll do is, Oichlin the Kalim Shenitnu b'mashkin, one of the original cases of Truma Tameya was a case where either Oichlin or Kalim became Tameh from Mashkin, which was only a Tumah D'Rabbanon, he won't count those as 2, he'll count those as 1, so the 19 now will become 18 again. So that's how we have the tally of 18 takanas. Okay, let's quickly do the Mishnah. We have 2 minutes left, and we'll hop around the Mishnah. Beis Shammai says, "Ein shoyrin diyai v'simonim v'karshinin el kadei sheyeshuru mi b'oidyoin." Beis Shammai has a halacha, a big chiddush. Oh, before we do the Mishnah, I just want to point out we do not asher the oil of a goy. The oil of a goy was a takana that was rejected by Klal Yisrael. It was never accepted, and because of that, today we do use the oil of a goy. So we're makbid on yain nesach, on yain nachri, pas nachri, but we're not makbid on the oil of a goy, and that's because the takana was rejected. The other thing is the wine of a goy, especially nowadays where they don't do anything l'avodah zarah, it's not so pashut that you're not allowed to have enough of it. So if you get some type of wine from a goy as a katmachif, whether or not you have to pour it out or not, it's something you should ask a shaila. Don't assume you for sure have to pour it out.
I don't want to belabor this topic, but it seems to me that the Mishkav Zachar is beyond the Avodah Zarah, which is on B'nai Seim. The hidden agenda of what they wanted to avoid was Mishkav Zachar.
That's why they made male children tameh.
But that's why well B'nai Seim, B'nai Seim Shemit Davar. 1 second.
No, the B'nai Seim Shemit Davar means we don't want you associating with their
because of Avodah Zarah. And an Avodah Zarah because of something else.
No. Val Davar Acher Mishum Davar Acher is not referring to Avodah Zarah. Val Davar Acher means they also asserted some other mystery thing for another mystery thing, but nothing to do. The Val Davar Acher Mishum Davar Acher in the last item, neither of those Davar Achers are referring to Avodah Zarah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to get my Davar Achers in order. Okay.
Zolty more weiter. The Shammai is a huge chiddush that your kalim, you are mechuyev to stop any of your kalim from doing a malacha. So not only can you not do a malacha, your kalim are not allowed to do malachas for you on Shabbos. So if you're going to be soaking the different ingredients with which you make ink, or karshinim were some type of beans that were used as animal feed, so you would soak it to make it into some type of doughy paste. Again, the malacha here is kneading, I believe Rashi says. It's either kneading or tzeveya. So if you were going to prepare these in a pot, they cooked in a pot, you would not be allowed to let them cook in the pot on Shabbos unless they're fully ready mibojoin. Because if they're not ready before Shabbos and they continue to cook and get ready on Shabbos, your pot is actually doing a malacha for you on Shabbos, and that's not allowed according to Beis Shammai. Basil Matirin. Basil holds your kalim are allowed to do a malacha for you. So as long as everything was prepared before Shabbos and you put it up before Shabbos, we don't care if your pot continues to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. They would put bundles of flax, white flax, in an oven, and the purpose of it was as it got heated up, it became very white. That's how they bleached it. So you're not allowed to put it into a tanner, unless it got fully heated up and fully whitened before Shabbos arrives. Tosfos says over there, the problem is mislabing. That's a malacha to make wool white, to bleach wool. That would be a malacha. You're not allowed to let your kalim do that for you on Shabbos. So you're only allowed to put it into a pot in an oven if it will be completed before Shabbos. The same thing, if you put wool into a pot that has dye in it and you want the dye to take hold in the wool, it has to be fully dyed before Shabbos. And again, because my kalim are allowed to do a malacha for me. You're not allowed to spread nets unless you know for sure that the nets will be full mibojoim. And according to speak out, if it's a huge net, even though it'll catch some animals mibojoim, it has to be nets that will be totally full by the time Shabbos comes, so no more capturing is going to occur on Shabbos. So you have to make sure that the nets will reach their capacity before Shabbos and no additional capturing is going to occur on Shabbos from your nets. Again, it was still matirin because your kalim are allowed to do work for you on Shabbos.
Sorry, Yossi, with the capturing. I mean, the other things, there's a time factor with the capturing. It's you don't know when the animals are going to come in. So how can you measure that, or how can you?
So the Chaim said you have to put it in a place where you know that there's a lot of animals there. You have to put it in a really good place. If you put it in a place where you never know when an animal might show up, that would be a big problem. According to Bishami, you have to put it into a fish farm. You can only do it in a fish farm, okay, where you know for sure it's going to be full or reasonably it's going to be full by the time Shabbos comes. Now the next part of the Mishnah has nothing to do with Shvisas Kalim. It's a whole different shaila. You're not allowed to sell something to a goy, or you're not allowed to help him load up his donkey with product, or you're not allowed to help him load himself up, unless the goy will reach his destination before Shabbos. Because otherwise, it looks like you're asking the goy to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. So anything that you're involved with a goy has to be completed by Shabbos. Basil Matirin, Basil is not a problem because it's the goy doing it. You don't have to worry about it. But the Shammai holds you have to be concerned that someone's going to say that the goy was doing malacha for you. The Shammai ain't nice and oiros la'abdon. You're not allowed to give in hides to a person who works in hides. But like Kalim l'kovis nachri, you're not allowed to give your shirts into the laundry. Ela kadeshi yasim b'joim, unless there's enough time for the guy to finish the work before Shabbos. U'v'chulon beisil matirin im hashemesh. In all these cases, Beis Hillel allows you to do it as long as you gave it to them before Shabbos.
So Beis Shammai wouldn't allow you to give your car to the mechanic right before Shabbos?
I guess not. Amar Reb Shimon Gamliel, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel was from the house of Hillel, yet he was machmer like Beis Shammai. The Hagen Hayu Beis Abba, my family, had the minig. White shirts that take longer to launder, we were makbid to give it in at least by Wednesday. Meaning we were makbid on Beis Shammai Shita, even though we are from the family of Hillel. Everybody agrees, both Shammai and Hillel, that you're allowed to put weights on top of the olives or grapes that are in a press, and the weight of those weights will slowly extract oil or grape juice out of the grapes and olives over Shabbos. And the reason why everybody agrees to that is because that's not a malacha. The malacha, a deraisa of squeezing wine out of grapes or oil out of olives, is only when the skin of the peri was not broken, and when you crush it, you break the skin. Once the skin is broken already, then anything else that you squeeze out is not a malacha deraisa. So therefore, all of the skins were crushed before Shabbos. Then you loaded up all these grapes on the press and you put a weight on top of them. So even though it was continuing to squeeze wine out throughout Shabbos, that's not a malacha deraisa anyway, because all the skins have already been pre-crushed, and that's why it's allowed. And I guess we can stop here. Okay, Lamer Davidim. Okay, be well. Have a
second
wonderful
sponsor. Hold on a second. Sponsorship by the week sponsor is by David Zolty, Lilu Nishmas, his father, Reb Moshe, Reb Chaim, and today's broadcast sponsored by Shaya Meyer HaKoyen Botnik, Lilu Nishmas, his father, Aaron Pinchas Ben Yitzchak Yosef HaKoyen. Shem should have an aliyah.
It should be mailed Yosher for all of us down here.
Right.
That we should get out of this crisis soon.
Amen. Yossi, you knew his father?
Sure, Harry Botnick?
Yeah, Harry Botnick.
Sure.
No, he wasn't a Bel Yort guy, right?
Avada.
Yeah, I know. Right. Two brothers. All right. They did a lot for Yiddishkeit back in the day. Yeah. Okay. Shkoyach.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
Who are you going at 7:45 for?
I don't know. Whoever comes. But usually it's yesterday it was Moshe Rubner and it was David Kutner.
Okay. Very good. All right.
Shkoyach.